As always, full disclosure that I received a copy of this game for review through the developer. In fact, the developer actually reached out to me, which was really cool and a pretty new experience for me. So, verdict up front. I can't stop playing Nova Drift long enough to write a review of Nova Drift. That's right. Every time I go to write, I think, let me play a bit more just to be sure I articulate this correctly, and I get sucked in for another hour. Now, I'm going to do this review a bit backward from how I normally would and start with the price. This game is $20. For me personally, this style of game is a real hard sell for $20. I'm going to tell you why I enthusiastically believe it's worth that price. It's also worth noting that this game is apparently still in early access and is receiving updates. I want to be clear that this feels like a finished product, and that if support for it ended tomorrow, I'd still firmly recommend this game at the price it sells for. So let's get this out of the way. This game looks simple, and realistically it is, but there's a lot of depth to it. I've seen it compared to Vampire Survivors and Brotato, but really it reminds me more of the likes of Risk of Rain, a game I've been playing a lot of lately. The upgrade system in this game is pretty similar to that in my opinion, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's take it from the top. This game is basically Atari's 1979 hit Asteroids on steroids, and yes, by that I mean that this game is, by design, not a twin-stick shooter. It's a single-stick shooter. You move and aim in the same direction. It takes that classic arcade game feeling and cranks it up to 11, with roguelike elements overlaid on top. And I want to be clear, plenty of games do roguelike nowadays, but it's not every day that a game does roguelike properly. What do I mean by that? Well, let's go back to the Risk of Rain comparison. Risk of Rain 2 specifically, because in my opinion it's just more of what the first game did, but better. Now, Risk of Rain is a bit different because in a traditional run, you aren't typically picking your upgrades. From time to time, you have to choose between some, but most of your run is spent trying to efficiently kill enemies to progress. Much like this game though, there are modifiers, including one that lets you pick which items you get, called Command. This is a good way to try out different strategies, or just build really broken combinations. What it really showcases though is how the different upgrades interact with the player character. Now, in Risk of Rain's case, the upgrades interact with the character abilities differently. Suppose you're playing as this guy with a shotgun, the bandit, and you pick up the tri-tip dagger. It gives your projectiles a 10% chance to cause bleed. Great, you shoot a lot of them. However, I don't think that this item is going to be quite as useful on the railgunner who relies on big damage, single-hit shots. Now, in Nova Drift, you're always playing the same ship, but you basically build your character from scratch each run, and these same principles apply to the kit you choose going forward. When you start a run, your first 3 upgrades are your weapon, your shield, and your body type, in that order. These can be changed later, but this is what you're starting with. Once you've picked those, you're greeted by a new upgrade menu with 7 options instead. These are little modifiers that, here's the comparison I was making, function similarly, in my opinion, to those Risk of Rain upgrades I was talking about. You've got stuff that will uniquely scale with your build. For example, the railgunner here's damage scales with the speed of the projectile, and stuff that won't help at all or even actively harm your build, like massively shrinking the radius of your grenade launcher explosions. You also level up very easily, so you'll start to notice the effects of these upgrades right away. Furthermore, as you select upgrades, they progress along a tree, allowing you to pick up stronger upgrades that have now been unlocked by the lower tier ones. There are tons of these upgrades. I've been playing for 6 hours and I'm still seeing ones that I haven't seen before. There are even combinations if you can manage to get the right ones, though I haven't done this yet because I'm terrible at the game. But this is just the vanilla experience. Allow me to introduce you to the custom modifiers. Now, this is my favorite way to play because it really mixes things up a lot. It multiplies your score and your XP modifier, so you level up more quickly, but it really increases the chaos too. More elite enemies, black holes, shooting stars, you name it. My favorite though is wild mods. Wild mods are like the regular upgrades, but I don't really know, weirder, I guess? Many of them have a smaller effect, with the benefit being that they can be stacked infinitely. I really like the wild mod that lets you take 3 of the next wild mod you find, letting you basically get 3 levels for the price of 1. There are tons of interactions like this in the game, and it's really hard to go into in a video just because it's such a simple formula that it has to be played to truly understand. There's another mode called Draft. Haven't unlocked that yet, but the dev notes indicate that you build your ship beforehand and then you go from there. I love card drafts, so I'm absolutely stoked to try this out. Don't even get me started on the bosses. They all play so differently from each other that it can really slow your run if you have the wrong build, but it never feels like you have to build around them either. And they're super creative. It's just pure arcade bliss. Like I said, I've had a hard time even putting the game down long enough to write the review. So let's touch on the more universal gaming details. Options menu is huge, robust, tons of remapping options. I personally prefer to play this game with a controller, but it works great with keyboard and mouse as well. I think the tank controls of WASD do feel a bit clunky, so I recommend the controller, or at least the mouse. When using those, it controls amazingly smooth. A game like this lives or dies by how it controls, and it's been nailed spot on. Several accessibility options, which I always love to see. This is a high score chasing game, so of course we have speedrun mode. Here are the unlockables. Like I said, I'm really bad at this game, but as you can see, there's a lot of stuff here. I even have some bodies and weapons to unlock still. And then there's the high scores section, which also shows you your previous run's upgrades and the like. Pretty standard stuff. Sounds are nice. Nothing really stood out to me personally. If you played me the audio from the game, I wouldn't be able to say, oh right, that's Nova Drift right there. But I don't think that's necessary either. The sounds are satisfying and they communicate what I should know. Weapons firing, things hitting my shield, etc. And the music's fun. I mean this as a compliment because it's easy to overdo in a game like this. Everything feels perfectly designed for the experience, and it gets you in that flow state. Now, graphics though. The graphics are something I really like about this game. It's just so pretty, really smooth and minimalistic, making it very easy to read. Readability is huge in a game like this, and I'm sure it's tough to straddle that line between readability and character, so don't misinterpret this statement. This game oozes character. There are small changes that will happen with certain mods that show a real love and attention to detail that you could easily miss if you aren't looking for it. I love that. And again, I go back to the bosses. I mean, look at this here. You know exactly what this guy is going to do. And he looks good to boot. I don't think there's much else I can really say about the game that I haven't already. If you know me, you know I love bullet hells, you know I love arcade games, and most of all, you know I love roguelikes. This game just absolutely smashes it out of the park. How it only has 8,000 reviews on Steam, I have no idea, because this game is at the top of its genre, and you'd be hard-pressed to find something as visually appealing, mechanically refined, and kinetically addicting as Nova Drift. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have just one more round to play. Thanks again to the developer for providing me with a code. If you liked this review, by all means leave a thumbs up, and hey, if you got the game, drop your high score in the comments. I'd love to compete with you all, even though I'm not very good. If you prefer my long form content, don't worry, I have a pretty deep Tunic analysis on the way, and I think you'll be impressed. So feel free to subscribe if you want to be notified of that. Thanks again for watching, and as always, I will see you next time.